They were all handsome. They all wore long white scarves. And I said, this is the kind of combat I wanted to be.
There were no romantic pilots in the air on September 1st, 1939. Just a brutal surprise attack by Hitler's Germany on neighboring Poland. Central to Germany's plan for overwhelming victory was its air force, the Luftwaffe.
Hitler had introduced a new concept of warfare. It was called air power. His Stuka bombers had caused that country to surrender for the first time with little or no land army.
And what is that speaking of in the scripture? Okay, show you this. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so like I said, in Revelation, to be able to read this book and have this understanding, this thing jumps. It jumps a lot, and it can jump from not only just chapter to chapter, verse to verse. It can jump in between two time periods inside the same verse. This is the same Revelation 9, and down here where it's talking about rockets and missiles and this, that, and the other, and ICBMs and all this other kind of stuff. In verse 19, you come up here to verse 10, and it says, and they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power to hurt men was 5 months. Okay, and this is talking about World War I right here. Okay, let me think. Okay, because by the time you get to verse 12 here, it says, and one woe is a destruction. So World War I, this is talking about World War I here. And when it's over with, one woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. So that German air assault and whatnot was the jump off for World War II. And now the third woe, which is another world war, is in the making, and it's going to be settled and finished with Yahweh Shai showing up on scene and nuclear weapons being used. Okay? So like I said, if you can't read through this and keep this straight in your head and whatnot in the process, and having been taught by teachers of diligence, that that makes their calling and election sure, which makes our calling and election sure when we teach what is taught us, okay, and stay inside them realms, okay, because this isn't about guessing now. This is about knowing, okay, and basically what we need to know is what it takes for salvation. That's the main thing that we're preaching on. But being able to break these scriptures down is another aspect of it that we have to be able to have, So, like I said, so with that being said, with those things having been said like that, this Bible jumps around, and if you're not taught correctly, and you're not studying, and you're not, applying yourself on some level, you're not going to be able to keep this straight in your head. Okay, and Yahweh B'Shem Shai has definitely got to be dealing with you in the spirit for you to be able to keep that in your head. I've seen brothers that had this on lock, and they done bugged out now, and they can't keep the simple oracles straight. Okay, and these 2/3 that wanted to be joined to their enemies. Okay, these 2/3 that wanted to be joined to their enemies, and fly and do all this and subject themselves to this damaging a thing, didn't have this damaging a culture, didn't have it right as to the ability to fly, the want and desire to be a superhero, and where it absolutely came from. It's talked about in the Bibles, but guess what? They didn't break that down in your down south Baptist preaching, which is basically this universal Catholic doctrine that's been pushed, you know, going back to Nicene Council and then some. Okay? So
Hitler flies to survey what he has done, the destruction of a nation. Poland divided between the Nazi Germans and the Soviets. Good view of what attack from the sky achieved. The flying field pitted with bomb craters.
Days later, Britain and France declared war against Germany. Italy and Japan sided with Hitler. World War II had begun. Far from the conflict, the United States proclaimed neutrality.
See, this is Virgin Babylon. That's why it says, "O virgin daughter, come sit in the dust." See, she ain't got no war on her doorsteps, so she's sitting neutral. Japan pulls them in. This is they want to label this a double victory because they was allowed to fly for their enemy, huh? And be looked upon and still dealing with systematic racism. It wasn't a victory. Okay? It's stupidity. Okay? And now they done got so old that like I said, it's real hard to find those men that done flew for this country and convince them that what they did was, since the world done start trying to big them up and tell them that they was stupid, they was a fool, and that they shouldn't have never trust their enemy pursuant to Sirach 12 and 10. Can't tell them nothing. Okay? So I'm gonna let this play about to the 6-minute mark and whatnot, but just so they can see, just so you can see the racism that these guys dealt with, and the fact that they think that there was a victory. See, this was the height. This was the height of Americans' prosperity after World War I, but not quite into World War II yet. Okay, this was part of the height of it. Okay, it just came out of the Great Depression of the 30s or so. Okay, so they were starting to build things back up, and then they go into another war. But America has been, for only about 20-something years, has had some kind of military might around the world that they was flexing in the middle of anyway. So,
Following in Europe, Americans geared up to fight, Black America included.
I believe it was my duty and responsibility, as my father did and my grandfather did, that the country's in trouble. You work with it. You do what you have to do.
This wasn't your country, though. Like I said, this is the difference. That's how come Jerusalem, which is above, is the mother of us all. That's why I pulled that scripture up. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay? He's still got the pride of wearing American fighter wings. Okay? Got that loose tooth. It's starting to make me actually fart at the mouth. Oh, damn. But anyway, sorry about that. So if y'all heard that and thought it was a fart, no, that was my tooth acting funny with my mouth. But yeah, so this is what I'm saying. You know, this guy's got his pilot wings on and whatnot. Still prideful. Like I said, there's no way I could get him to understand and this, that, and the other. He's wearing wings and he's booty faced. I'm going to tell him now that he needs to grow a beard. Huh? He needs to grow a beard and all that white that's on his head is going to be on his face. Oh, no. You know, I shouldn't assume that. But like I said, you know, as they say, you don't put new wine in an old bottle. The scripture do say that. Okay, it do say that. He wouldn't be able to hold it. He's full right now. He think he's got the fullness of knowledge inside him. So I couldn't teach him anything new.
You can't turn your back on your own country. So
You can't turn your back on your own country. You'd almost thought this was an Edomite, huh? The 332nd Fighter Group, you'd almost thought this was an Edomite if you saw him on the street. See what I'm saying?
we're as patriotic as anybody else. And so we wanted our chance to prove that we could do something.
But for African Americans, answering the call of duty meant...
See, African Americans. Okay, this was, what, 7 months ago? See, so they're African Americans. You know, like I said, I was Negro, and back then when these guys, their birth certificates was reading colored.
Defending a country that saw them as second-class citizens.
Let me back that up just a little bit. I'm going to let that play through, and that's going to be pretty much it. Nah, I don't want to go back that far. Definitely don't want to go back this far. Okay, here we go.
Proclaim neutrality. But with bombs falling in Europe, Americans geared up to fight. Black America included.
I believe it was my duty and responsibility, as my father did and my grandfather did, that the country's in trouble. You work with it. You do what you have to do.
You can't turn your back on your own country. So we're as patriotic as anybody else. And so we wanted our chance to prove that we could do something.
But for African Americans, answering the call of duty meant defending a country that saw them as second-class citizens. More than 70 years after the end of slavery, state-sanctioned segregation was rampant. And while life in...
More than 70 years after slavery was supposedly abolished. The Emancipation Proclamation, after 70 years. And I said you're looking at about 80 years to go from that time period there to now. So what are we looking at, 140 years total? But we still got what we've got. We still got racism in America. It's not going nowhere. And that's what these people need to understand. It's not going nowhere.
Northern cities was nominally better. Racial oppression was a national fact of life. The armed forces were no different.
And racial oppression is still a fact of life. So-called Negro, Latinos, and Native Americans are still getting gunned down in the damn street. You don't see Edomites, so-called white people being gunned down in the street the way you see so-called African Americans being gunned down, which are basically Israelites. You don't see that. So it's still here.
They segregated blacks into separate units, overseen by white officers who assigned the men low-level menial duties. Some branches of the service barred blacks from their ranks altogether.
I wrote the War Department. I wanted to know how one goes about getting into a flying training program. The first letter of rejection I received said in no uncertain terms there were no facilities to train Negroes to fly in any branch of the American military service.
If you became a pilot in the United States Air Force, you automatically became a commissioned officer, which meant that you could give any white non-commissioned officer orders.
For the Air Corps.
And that's why systematic racism, there was no way they wanted to see that happen, period. So I'm going to end it on that. Because like right now, you're still looking at the same thing. It's still in play. Our enemy is still above us, and this type of thing. But for the people that are in the know and the elect, we see what's happening through these scriptures. We know what's happening and coming down the pipe. So that should be very edifying and very, very uplifting to know that even though they don't want it to happen, these Edomites don't want this to happen, it is going to happen anyway, and they can't stop it. It's too far out as they say, the cat is too far out the bag to be able to put it back in now. So with that, I want to send all praises, honor, and glory out to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash, to the apostles and elders of GMS out of New York. I want to send double honors because they do rule well. To the brethren around the world, pushing this truth uncut, unfiltered, giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly of the scriptures, correctly breaking down prophecy, interaction. With the people on the planet declaring warning, I send salutations. I hope we elect. I hope that's edifying. Aqua, few and true that's listening sincere and charity keep doing so. But for scorn or scoff, we reprobate 2/3 Israelites and 17 other nations. You're in the midst of Jacob's trouble, and it is going to get worse. First group, Hardy Shalom. Second group, a Barber Ball.